Hi, I'm Alex, and welcome back to the Boathouse Paddle series where we talk about everything concerning paddle. Today's topic is pausing of subscriptions. In general, a subscription ends when you cancel it. From that point on, no further charges are made, and your product or services stops delivering, so the customer doesn't have access to them again. But pausing is an interesting second option to that. If you pause a subscription, you're basically also stopping the charges and also stopping providing that service for the period of time where it's paused, but you can resume it after weeks or months even without the customer having to go through the checkout again. A canceled subscription, on the other hand, is canceled permanently. Once it's canceled, you can't restart that subscription. You have to start a new subscription and run through the checkout with the customer again. So pausing is an interesting option if you have maybe a seasonal business, for example. So let's say during the summer months, your customers aren't working or they don't need your service. You can offer them the opportunity to pause for 2 or 3 months, for example, and then resume later. And you can also, let's say people have an emergency or something happens in life and you just want to offer them the possibility to pause and resume at a future point in time. That's possible with Paddle as well. So let's have a look how we can do this in the Paddle account. I'll show you some API aspects later on. So you'll open a subscription in your account and you can see this is an annual subscription, but on the top right, you have the pause subscription button. Now, the first thing you need to choose is when does this pause become effective? And there's two options. You have now, which basically interrupts the product and service immediately as soon as you pause it. And the remainder of the current billing period gets credited to the account. So if you resume it later, they will have a period that they've already paid for in the past that they can then use your product and service. And then once that's used up, the next payment or the next charge will be made. The second option is to do it at the end of the next billing period, as it says here. Strictly speaking, it's not the end of the next billing period, it's the end of the current billing period. So in this case, you can see it says August 12th, 2025, which is in 1 year's time. And by this, what this basically just means is that it'll run the current billing period that they have paid for, and they will have access to products and services until that is finished, and then it gets paused. And then the next recurring sort of the next time a charge is made is when you resume the subscription. So in this case, if I pause this at the end of the next billing period, they will have a whole year worth of the product and service to use. They won't be charged again from that point on. And then after that, whenever they resume, they'll continue with an annual renewal payment, basically. Another option is to automatically resume. So let's say you do want to provide a couple of months in the summer off. You want your service to be paused for a couple of months, but then automatically resume without them having to resume it specifically. Then you can use the automatically resume button and set a date and time when this change happens. So when the resume is done automatically. There's no interaction in terms of checkout necessary. So as soon as this resume date passes by, they will be charged again. There's no extra UI that you need to pop up or anything like that. It's probably a good idea to remind them when a resume happens if it's been a long time that they've been paused. But in terms of payments, you don't actually have to show any checkout at this point in time. Now, let's have a look at the API briefly. So there are two endpoints which are quite obvious. You pass in the subscription ID and then you hit the pause endpoint to pause. Same thing for a resume. Now, if you're using automatic resuming, so you've set a date, that one's a little bit more tricky. Basically, this change is added as a scheduled change property to the subscription. So it'll say the action is resume, and it'll tell you an effective date that this resume is going to happen. If you want to switch off that automatic resume, you have to set this object to null and then pass that into the patch method for the subscription, the API. That's a little bit different to the other two endpoints, but it's also very easy to do if you want to do that via the API. And that's a very easy option to provide to your customers instead of just outright canceling a subscription. Pausing is a great way to keep the record, the subscription alive, basically. so that they can resume at any time and come back. You might even want to continue sending them emails, for example, telling them how the service has evolved, what's changed, and keep them in the loop, and they'll be more likely to resume a subscription later on. That's all for today.